All right, we're live.
Welcome to the AI Revolution Call. I'm Cody Willard. It's Bryce Smith, John Dio. You've probably been here before if you're here today. You know, Bryce and I run a hedge fund. We invest in AI stuff, tech stuff specifically. John Dio has been working in the AI revolution for longer than it's even existed. Yeah. Anyway, mid-90s anyway. So let's talk AI revolution. First and foremost, I guess, what do you have? Like, what do you got for news-wise? I'm over here, like, using AI Studio from Gemini, Google right now. I'm vibe coding and getting frustrated with it. I should have done it right before the call. I'm so mad at AI Studio for removing something that it had earlier, and it just can't add one more thing to my web app. Yeah. So amazing.
I just the other day was hearing about the news story of college grads having higher unemployment than the general unemployment rate, and that being a first time thing, and then they're relating it to AI.
I don't buy any of that shit. I mean, it's just a moment in time. I had more and more. We're actually trying to hire someone. It's like we're already like 5 to 10 times more productive each at the hedge fund / writing stuff, and it's not enough. Like the opportunity to grow our business using AI is insane, and we're going to take advantage of it. And I think that's how most businesses see it.
Most big and small. There's not a difference there.
I mean, I also read some bullshit the other day, over the weekend, that like major enterprises, large corporations are not finding AI productive at this moment, and they're pulling back. None of that's true. That is just ridiculous. I mean, we're sitting here vibe coding like technological revolution matrices and making interactive web apps so that we can ourselves think through revolutions in technology ever better. And like if you're like in the whole time I'm doing it, I'm sitting here thinking about how it's still the dial-up internet phase and it's so archaic. Like, it's incredible what I'm doing, but I just know that like waiting for things like for the code to get through, and it takes sometimes 20 or 30 seconds or 2 minutes, that's going to be faster. And sitting here like telling it that, hey, you should have this stuff above the line and that below the line. That stuff just gets faster and faster, and it's going to get better all the time. Using AI Studio right now, I know I'm like I'm literally like 32 kilobits per second dial up on AOL email. It's ridiculous how archaic this is, but you can so see where it's going, and I'm going to be able to like vibe code real software solutions for all kinds of stuff in our business and our personal lives.
So two things. One, my favorite expression so far in this whole AI wave is, this is the worst it will ever be.
Yes, exactly.
So you watch something happen and it's totally amazing, and it's like, whoa, and you're like, keep in mind, it'll forever be better than this.
That's like exactly what I'm trying to get at, John. Like, I can't believe what I'm able to sit here and create just talking to AI and what I can learn from talking to AI. But I also know that it's the worst it's ever going to be. Like, I can't, again, the stupid Siri solution is beyond archaic. It's actually going backwards. Yeah. Bryce, how's the new Google phone? You quit iOS. Bryce is out of Apple. He's done with this shit. He's done with Tim Cook. But look, his Microsoft computer froze. Oh, good. There he is.
I'm here. Were you talking about me?
Yeah. How's the new phone, man?
Yes, I've got the Google Pixel. Yeah. What's funny, from the front, like if I'm like, have it out of the table or whatever, you can't really tell that it's not an iPhone. I mean, it's
an Android, right?
Yeah. So it's Android operating system, but the hardware itself was designed by Google. And the reason I went with the Google version instead of like a Samsung, or you can get
He's
Oh,
freezing.
Bryce's
for all of
internet.
those different Android operating phones. You can. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
your
you have a
internet
network
dragged.
issue.
You losing?
You're freezing.
You froze up.
Anyways, it's remarkably easy to use as a 15-year iPhone user to make the switch. It was hard. Like porting all the data over took probably 3 hours or something one morning. And, you have to log into all your apps again. You have to authenticate yourself. And so that's definitely pain. And, that's part of the switching cost thing. But in the grand scheme of things, within half a day, I was switched over from the iPhone. And so far, I love it. It's got I don't know, it's made me, like, my biggest takeaway is that you don't realize how stagnant iOS has been until you switch, and see like an alternative. And just besides the AI stuff, just Google's got some really cool stuff built into the Android operating system and functionality and customization and stuff. And I know that's what Android's always been known for, but I don't know, like Apple's always prided itself on making things easy, but like that doesn't mean you have to make it like simple and stupid, right? Like you could still have an easy to use interface that my 75-year-old grandma can use that is also functional and customizable. like I don't know why Apple basically they've taken the easy thing to mean just like we're not going to do anything, we're not going to make any changes because people know how to use iOS.
Yeah, I feel like the reason I go with Android on the phone and have for a while is I like to stay current on a variety of operating systems. And I haven't done Windows in a while, but I've done it. And I have iOS on my iPad. So now it's iPad OS, but it's essentially like iOS, right? Mm-hmm. So that covers iOS. I have Mac desktop. I have Linux, if you consider, at least from a terminal standpoint. I'm in Linux all the time.
On a Mac computer, you're in
on
Linux?
A Mac computer. Yeah, on a Mac computer. And I dabble, with things like Raspberry Pi, but that's not like a kind of consumer desktop thing, but it's another OS. But Android is, Apple is so simple for the masses that it's like they purposefully keep it almost stupid simple. Like, and why not have that one extra button that helps you back out of things instead of having it built into all of the different software differently? And I'm on my wife's iPhone. I'm going, wait, how do I get out of this app? Oh, for that one, it's you click up here. And for this other one, you slide it away. And for whatever, as opposed to it just being a thing. So it's supposed to be Apple's thing to do that, make everyone conform. But actually, Android, I think, does it better about that piece. And then around settings and all those kinds of things, you just have more control over your environment on an Android phone than you do on an Apple. And maybe Apple has better photography. It's not one of my things.
Yeah, I mean, and that the differentiation between the best Google Android Pixel camera system and the best iPhone camera system from Apple, I mean, maybe some professional photographer could tell a difference, but 99.9% of us are going to be like, yeah, it's an amazing photograph. Like it just, there is not that big of a difference, even, between the expensive iPhone and 2 years ago, least expensive iPhone. They all take amazing pictures.
They gear toward, on Apple, they gear toward, Instagram users and things, and it'll be like, hey, when you take a picture, it's actually taking 5 of them and averaging and going toward the best in the middle and turning, they do cool stuff software wise to but it's aimed at that. I can take this great picture and put it on Instagram. Well, good for you.
Yeah. Here's a question, Bryce. I'd like to do an experiment. Why don't you ask your interface to the phone without opening it? Just leave it sitting on the desk and ask it to explain electrons and whether or not they are the most valuable per pound thing in existence.
Okay, can we do it right now?
Yeah, do it now, and then I'm gonna do the same.
Okay. Hey Google, can you explain electrons and like the concept that they might be the most valuable matter in existence?
On a per pound.
Electrons are fundamental subatomic particles with a negative charge, orbiting the nucleus of an atom. Their interactions dictate chemical reactions, electrical conductivity, and nearly all phenomena we observe. As for their value, it stems from their ubiquitous role in technology and energy. They are the basis of electricity, computing, transistors, and future advancements in quantum computing, spintronics, and highly efficient energy transfer. Manipulating electron behavior at an atomic level is key to unlocking next-generation electronics, solar cells, and novel materials.
Fantastic answer.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. That's like going to Gemini and just interfacing with it. Now watch this. You guys ready? Hey Siri, can you explain electrons and why they might be the most valuable matter ever on the planet?
Electrons are tiny, negatively charged particles that can behave like both waves and particles, determining the properties of atoms and playing a crucial role.
This is a blurb from some freaking blog, dude.
Oh, it's not really AI
That
answer.
is not AI.
With electromagnetic fields. This answer is from facts.net and tag vault.
From
Freaking
facts.
helpful. Like, it's truly archaic. I mean, it's like, yeah, what is this? This is 2020, 2016. We've been able to talk to Siri about the weather for 15 years. I wrote a book about the voice revolution 12 years ago.
Well, Apple I don't want to say gave up. They failed on their first pass to do what they were trying to do. They came out like the Worldwide Developer or Software Developer Conference, whatever, the thing before the last one.
Yeah, like 18 months ago.
Yeah, it was some time ago. I don't think it's that long, maybe, but maybe a year. I don't know.
No,
But
it's been like at least 15, 18 months, man, because the most recent one was the most recent Worldwide Developer Conference was like a month ago, 2 months ago.
It was, yeah. So whether it was that far before it, so you could ask, hey Siri, when was it that you guys said you were going to do something useful, but then didn't? No,
Hey,
but
Siri, when was it that you guys said you were going to fix this shit on Siri and you didn't?
I don't have an answer for that.
I don't have. As soon as you got vulgar, I don't have an answer for that. So, but like they had a decent idea about like how we're gonna like answer things in a private way with you, but then go elsewhere when we need to. But they didn't come through on it. They didn't actually do it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and you can't talk to it to this day. I will say, I feel like there's been a slight improvement in the last month where at least it's quit asking me, do you want me to ask ChatGPT that? And then it sits there for 3 minutes spinning.
No, well, okay. Yeah, it's gone from horrible to just dreadful. But
exactly, but that's an improvement. I mean,
so why doesn't Bryce, am I
going to have to get a Google phone? I mean, is that where this is going?
I do think that Apple is sort of just like they had a major edge for so long in the platform ecosystem, and the lock-in, all that stuff still exists. But I knew the AI was going to be better. But I think what shocked me is just that the hardware and the user interface and all that stuff is also like equivalent or better. So if you take out like the lock-in effect of being in the Apple ecosystem, there's no differentiation between the Google phone and the Apple iPhone, and that's just like over time. It's made me think about like almost like
there might be differentiation, but it's in Google's favor.
Yeah, right. Like Apple just doesn't have a real, if these two products were launched today, and the ecosystems didn't exist.
Exactly.
It's like, you know what I mean? It's Apple does
on merit, on outright merit today.
Yeah.
The Google phone is better in every way than the iPhone.
Yeah, that's what I see.
What about say like just when you're on to things like Siri, it makes me think of just smart home devices and like Amazon. It seems that they've got the hardware sitting out there. How much of a big technology change is it for them to just suddenly having AI behind it?
No, it's crazy, John, that it's not like that yet already. Every time I even talk to a Google device, home device at my house, it's stupid still. I don't understand why there hasn't. Tesla can sit here and over 5 years update my full self-driving every 2 months and make the car better and feature new apps and make it more interactive and all the things it does. And none of those home devices, Alexa sucks still. Google, hey, Google sucks
Alexa,
on a device, on a home device. And we don't even have to talk about Siri. It sucks on all the devices.
Yeah, Alexa. So did they not predict anything kind of down the road might happen where they go and say, let's just make the device itself useful enough that
John, it also confuses me. It seems like it's in the cloud, like the where that improvement needs to happen.
Mhm.
It seems like you already have it going into some, it's retrieving information from some centralized cloud inside of Amazon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it does right now when it gives you the weather. But why wouldn't somewhere in that from the device into change where that location is,
So
literally point it towards the AI instead of where it's currently pointing? Put that in the website, the URL that it's summoning or whatever it is that it's summoning.
Best case, do the brain transplant that you need to in the cloud and you're done. But if they go to do it and they're like, no, you don't get it, there's these other aspects, it just plain won't work. It's like, okay, fine, sell a new device.
That's what I was going to say. So where's my new Google device? I will spend a few $100s on new Google devices tomorrow. We've got, 12 of those things sitting around the house, every room.
Google Home, right?
We've got a Maris, right? And she needs 24/7 eyeballs. And there are times when Lori and I are both in the kitchen and we have a Google device streaming from a Nest camera from Maris's bedroom into our kitchen, into our bathroom, wherever we might be independently or together. If we're not in Maris's room, we're streaming a device. So we've got every room has a Google device so we can look at Maris.
Yeah. Seems like easy win for this stuff to be, or the agent aspect of things, to be doing the smart home, to be,
but again, I guess we need to just remind ourselves how we started off here. It's like archaic still. Like we're sitting here screaming at AOL dial-up. The old man yells at cloud. That's who I am right now.
And it's, as we maybe ended last time or something, we went to kind of review around the fact that, here we're talking about, first it was about Gemini AI Studio for, telling it what to make, and it goes make an application. Then we're talking about, talking to Siri and so forth. Then we're talking about, smart devices in the home. And it's like we touched just then on about 3% of what this thing is going to do. It's everything.
0.3%. I mean, it's like we haven't even scratched the surface of how all of this is going to fit into our lives 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now. And so it's funny too, John, if you would rewind our conversation since we started the AI Revolution call maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago at most. We've been doing this off and on every Monday for 18 months or 2 years. Like the AI itself has permeated our lives a lot in that time frame. The discussions have clearly evolved. But what we're doing, what we're talking about, when we're using this stuff, how we're using it, what we expect people to be doing with it, it's all evolved already, revolutionized already. And again, we're still we've gone from crappy. Oh, who was one of the competitors to AOL? Compact Computer bottom
to AOL.
Yeah, like another dial-up company.
It's name like Genie or something
like that. There were other dial-up internet companies that were like precursors even. And, AOL was like a better version of some of those. And it had sort of its own little cloud area that you could stay in. And, it was, but at any rate, it's so early. It's so early. I can't believe I'm sitting here frustrated at AI for not finishing my app in 6 prompts.
So what's the
expectations, Bryce?
What was that?
I need to check my expectations a little.
Well, all I was going to say is that there's that famous thing in technology where once it arrives, then human expectations move quickly, right? It's oh, this is no longer satisfactory. We need more. It should be able to do more. And
by the way, Alta Vista.
Yeah, that was a search engine. It's not what I was
blocked by Compact.
That's not it. There's another one. I might not even have Compact. Keep going, Brian.
Digital Equipment Corp was the other one. Yeah.
2 years ago, like when the ChatGPT moment happened, it impressed people because it could like draft poetry. You know, you're like, oh, make a poem about Carrizozo, New Mexico, and my daughter, blah blah blah, and like, wow, that's crazy. And like nowadays, ChatGPT is like people's like personal therapist. Like I see all kinds of.
Well, now we're like frustrated that you can't make a 10-minute movie. You're like, I can only make 8 seconds of aliens eating alligators in a swamp. Like that. Like what? You're making what used to, like when Steve Jobs started Next and Pixar, it was like, hey, someday we could make cartoons that look realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that my example of that is when, you know, some comedian talked about like they're flying over from like Hawaii to Japan and they get pissed because the call dropped, and you know that they were on a wireless kind of satellite call from their plane to somewhere else back in the States.
Yeah. Who's that? A comedian? He got in trouble for Me Too stuff.
Louis.
Louis C.K. I was going to say C.K. something. I couldn't
was
find
Louis C.K. He's the one who said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and he delivered that perfectly on some late night talk show, and it was perfect.
Like, do you? We're talking just then about some stuff, you know, in the home and everything. There's something that cuts across small business and large business, and maybe 80% of white collar people out there, and that's Excel. Do you, Bryce, want to say anything about what you just came across there?
Yeah, Bryce, you want to show us or just talk about it?
Yeah, it was a demo that went viral from a startup. I think they were like a Y Combinator startup. But anyways, it's they've basically rebuilt Excel. The software itself, it looks the same. And let me find I already forgot.
Well, I thought it came from Microsoft, but it will soon. They'll just buy it.
Yeah, let me find the name of this company.
Yeah.
So yeah, Shortcut. I'll just screen share so you guys can see.
Yeah, they're called Shortcut. Yeah.
Shortcut.ai. And so they have built an Excel clone that's truly like the AI does everything. And like they upload, I guess there's an Excel modeling competition, and they uploaded the question for this. I mean, you got the demo there, Cody?
It's like the Excel Olympics. I mean, these people who are the best in the world at Excel get handed these super.
Bryce, add me to the screen.
Let's look at a couple examples. You'll notice Shortcut looks pretty familiar. It has near perfect feature parity with Excel. You can open up existing Excels and work from there, or you can export them. And of course, you can run formulas. But you can also one-shot most of your work and come back when it's done. Here's Shortcut solving one of the hardest problems in all of Excel, the Financial Modeling World Cup case that takes about an hour. I attach multiple PDFs, and I ask it to solve it using the existing model and to make a new sheet with the answers. Now, it actually uses the existing model the way you're supposed to and using real Excel formulas. So it fills out the net revenues. It then goes and starts to tackle costs and fills out the rest of the income statement. Then it starts tackling the balance sheet, and it realizes that the PP&E line item is messed up, and it just recursively solves its own mistakes. So it fixes the PP&E, fills out the rest of the balance sheet, and then it proceeds to the cash flow statement. Then it makes a new sheet for the answers. Shortcut completed this case in less than 10 minutes and in a single shot. Shortcut is also very strong at building complicated models from scratch. Here I asked it to build a multi-tab pro forma cap table for a post-Series A company. And it did this in a single shot in less than 10 minutes, something that takes professional lawyers up to a full day to get done correctly. Shortcut can clean, edit, and analyze data way faster than humans can. Here I've edited a 5,000-row CSV of all of the companies that have ever been through Y Combinator, and I asked it just for some deep insights. It charted it, and it built dashboards that explained the data to me. And here it turns out the majority of companies are still active, they are B2B, but the consumer has a higher success rate. Until now, the 2 billion white-collar workers using Excel haven't really felt the wave of AI that's coming.
That's right.
Shortcut can already do 80% of human work on Excel, and it's only getting better.
All right, that's fine, Bryce.
Our early preview is live now. Comment for an invite code.
I gotta say, first off, that for 30 years or more, the spreadsheet has been called, right, the killer app. It's like it's the app. It's so useful in so many different ways. It's the killer app. This is like the killer app for the killer app.
Yeah, right.
And I just want to take a minute and go like, it's kind of, you and I, we have been talking about this stuff for a year and a half, whatever. For people who haven't been, step back and make sure we can describe what's going on there in a way that people get, like, why that is so incredible, how valuable it is, and like what's actually going on there.
So, I mean, like whether you're an engineer or a financial analyst, you live in Excel for much of your life, and you're trying to sort through data. You're just trying to make sense of enormous amounts of data, and each one of those data inputs is a cell in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere. And like, I mean, Bryce, since you started working for me, how many hundreds of hours have you spent on Excel spreadsheets? I mean, just making them, modeling them, improving them, creating charts from them, figuring out one company, a different sector. Yeah. I mean, what percentage of your life of your work life?
I mean, as an analyst, I mean, I do a lot of other things too, but just in my analytical role, I mean, that's over half of my time spent, you know. If I'm analyzing a company, I'm taking data from PDFs and videos and blah, 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 putting it in Excel, sorting it, figuring out ways to make sense of it, right? So
and making assumptions about things, and then rerunning those assumptions and trying a different number and a better assumption and worse assumptions. And
and so
I was so excited when I saw the demo. I didn't know that they were still like gatekeeping it because the usage has been so high. But I was like, I have my Google model that I've been working on. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to take this and describe what I want the Google model to be, you know, and then give it the data and have it build it. And I was so disappointed when I couldn't sign up right away.
You signed up for the wait list. You're on.
Yeah, I'm on the wait list, and I tweeted the CEO. He said if you tweet him, he'll give you a code, but that was 5 days ago. So I'm not sitting around waiting for a code.
If this works with Excel and not, say, like Google Sheets, I would go back to using Excel. I've gone to Google Sheets because I don't use
But John, this works with both. I mean, this supersedes them basically. It's
above them, but I'm saying like,
it is Excel. Like it replaces Excel. Bryce's rightly new theory, as soon as he saw it, was like, all right, it's not just Windows operating systems that's threatened by the AI interface. It's now Windows and Office together.
Why doesn't Microsoft acquire these guys for several billion like tomorrow? Do you think they're going to do this internally?
The way you do it nowadays is you hire everybody and pay them.
Yeah, you take a 40%, you take a 49% cut in this company, and then hire the CEO to come over full time.
Yeah, I guess. However they pull it off, but it's harder than we might think for Microsoft to say, oh yeah, we ought to do that.
They can't. They just can't. I mean, it's to try to replicate that from ground up when you have so many legacy business decisions and strategies that are inherent in what you're doing. You've got so much latent and like old school code inside of there that's going to break. I mean, you just
even if you made it its own, like they did, made it its own product, and it's like, it looks like Excel, but it's not. It's this other new thing. And even then, you know, Microsoft couldn't do it because internally everyone would be like, no, I own this, you know, I gatekeep this.
Right. You've got product managers whose livelihoods depend on various features inside of Excel.
Yeah.
And I think too, it kind of highlighted to me, I think Google is executing, like they're the master class in how you bring the legacy with the new, because they've got legacy search, which is, you know, $200 billion a year. You don't want to evaporate that overnight, and you have AI, but they keep getting like closer and closer and closer. Now with AI mode, you can see it almost about to merge, right? And with Microsoft, they're still like, it's off camera, but I mean, it's like the legacy shit is a mile away from where the AI is, and they slap Copilot on top of it and call it an AI product, and it's not. You know, it's like, I don't think Microsoft is going to pull off that merger of the legacy with the AI.
One thing I find interesting is I look at what's going on there, and I'm using Cursor and Windsurf, and you're using AI Studio and like those tools for kind of talking in your code, vibe coding, or the new term context coding. You're kind of saying what you want to have happen, and then it happens. And this is that, except where the canvas, instead of being code that's automatically being created and adjusted, is spreadsheets. And spreadsheets is 80% of the business world. You had code, now you have spreadsheets. What's left? We were already doing like, it'll make a document.
Left, John? Everything.
Everything else.
Everything else. But beyond that, Bryce, why, you said it a second ago in passing, and I want to just hit on it for a moment. Why are they not wide releasing this, and why do you have to get on a wait list?
Well, they don't have enough GPU capacity.
Inference, huh? You mean there's not enough inference in the world? I thought inference was passe. I thought we had all the inference we needed. I thought we didn't need any more. All the bears have been telling me inference is bullshit and CoreWeave is dead because there's going to be a new Blackwell's predecessor. What comes next after Blackwell? And NVIDIA is now using 1 year cycles to roll out the next generation. And so all of the bears on CoreWeave are like, hey, we got the CoreWeave's a accounting fraud because they're depreciating their GPUs over 6 to 8 years, meaning the useful life is essentially 6 to 8 years of GPU servers. But they have to the bears think that CoreWeave has to upgrade every single GPU as soon as the new one's out. But they don't. There's so much more demand for inference. There's so much more. Like, you're going to train things using the latest stuff, like this Shortcut.ai that we were just looking at. It built that stuff on that new Excel interface and revolution on the latest GPUs from NVIDIA. But now when Bryce wants to go to use it, he's going to just need commoditized standard inference and compute power. And CoreWeave and others are spending every dime they can to provide ever more of that, because just like you can't get a 10-minute cartoon built on any of these AI programs yet, the reason you can't do that is because there's not enough inference. There's not enough compute power. And all the bottleneck by far right now is inference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the other apps we've been playing with, and Cody mentioned earlier, is the video generation models, and we've been using VO3. It's basically the cutting edge right now. There are VO3s made by Google.
It's Google. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And but yeah, it's an 8-second video, and it takes anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to make 1 8-second clip, and like it's so frustrating. It's not like really usable. I mean, it's just, if you're going to be a software, if you're going to be a video creator, I guess it's probably usable. Like for us playing around, it's like we're just not going to sit there and for hours and hours and do it. Like Cody did it.
I've made dozens of music videos over the years using, archaic software for Mac, Windows. I can't even think of what it's called anymore. There's 2 different versions, and they were amazing. And they kept actually sort of like, this is Apple lately. They degraded their software trying to get you to go into their professional suite over time. What was it?
The professional one, Logic Pro was the professional.
Yeah, that might be it. Whatever it was. There was the consumer version, which sucked, and I had forever used the professional version, and then the consumer version started getting worse and worse, and they would even degrade some of, and they just changed the interface, and I couldn't even open whatever that program is to make the. But the point being, so I went to Flow, which is Google's video generation machine, and you can pick different models inside of Flow: VO2, VO3, VO3 Pro, blah blah blah. But it is interesting. You can make 8-second little clips and string them together and make a coherent, 5 or 10 minute long movie. It would take you a lot of time and a lot of iterations on each 8-second clip to sort of get them all like you want. But, like if you were a commercial maker, you would be doing that right. Now you'd at least be experimenting with it. And it's only going to get better. This is the worst it's ever going to be.
Right. Do you remember what it took back when Pixar did their first movie? You'd hear about them having their graphics workstations that, do this high powered, like it would take that 8 minutes, like per frame.
Yeah, no, rendering the videos, even when I first started doing that, you would, for just rendering a 30-second clip, and I would layer on several different like effects and things to make it look musically, aesthetic or something. And over time, like you would layer those things in there and you'd be like, all right, yeah, render, and you'd go eat dinner. You'd come back 2 hours later and be like, well, shit, we're 80% done. And it just rendering stuff on, and this was long before 4K, long before 8K. This was not even HD. This was standard video back in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on Instagram or TikTok these days, you've probably seen some of the viral AI videos. Like there's one, it always like has Bigfoot and he's doing different things and he's like live streaming with a selfie stick. And I don't know, those things have really taken off. I've been sent several of them. And
you made one, right? Who did you make? Was it?
Yeah, I made one about Davy Crockett at the Alamo, and the premise of it was that he was live streaming, the Alamo, but he was overly confident in his hat because he wears like a raccoon hat, and progressively, he starts off really excited and confident. He's like, they don't got this hat, and then things go downhill from there, and then the hat doesn't save him. So that was the point of the.
It was funny. It was fun. Right? You shared it with me. I chuckled.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, those are clever. They're getting to be a little passé.
Sure.
But they're fun. You've seen Jesus ones, Moses ones.
Yeah.
All kinds of different ones, and they're mostly funny, sometimes sacrilegious, but
yeah.
There's a Venn diagram of sacrilegious and humor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is like. I think it's so fascinating. We talked about this last week, but that the consumer is leading the adoption curve, not the government or enterprise. And I still don't know all of the implications of that, but I think it makes me more bullish.
It does, Bryce. Always. That is, you want to empower the end user, the end game of the internet revolution. As I have been saying for 25 years, the end game of the internet revolution is total empowerment of the end user. And the end users are geniuses and brilliant. Not all of them, but many of them are geniuses and brilliant. And they're going to come up with better content than the gatekeepers in Hollywood and New York ever could. There's already, but going back to what you just said, it's like the viral clips that are being made with AI are all random people in trailers or apartments or houses somewhere making funny videos. Or even clever videos, and not Coca-Cola. It's not an ad company. It's not Netflix. The people making viral content with this stuff are end users.
Bryce, do you think you could get Cody next time to show a little more enthusiasm? Because, but yes, do you remember? Like it was how many? It was months ago. I don't know how many, 4 or 6 months, whatever, when OpenAI had that thing where suddenly they're doing like the images of you could give it a picture and say, here, make this in the Ghibli style. Mm-hmm. And then Studio Ghibli. And it's so funny because I just did one of those today. I not regularly do them, but somebody sent a picture that was regular picture that was they're proud of their new car and they're standing there, and I made them one for them with their car, and they were like, this is so awesome, I'm going to say this forever, but it was like it just burned down the servers, the amount of back to the the processors. It needed processors big time, and it was the end user. My only thought about that though is is this do they get the fact that there's big AI stuff going on because they have this example, or do they treat it like this one individual thing that occurred in a vacuum and it doesn't end up teaching?
I genuinely don't think the average investor, the average analyst on Wall Street, the average consumer certainly has any idea just how impactful AI is already and how much more it's going to be in their lives every month forever.
But they will start to get they'll become demanding in a way where this is like what consumers do. They'll say, hey, why don't I have this in this other style? Or why can't I do whatever? And it's like they'll expand the kind of the demand out around all this stuff. And you don't know how hard it is and what a miracle it was that they even got what they did get. But people will go work on it and come back to them with these new, things. It's like they know how to demand more.
John, another epiphany I had over the weekend, based on this same kind of logic that we're hitting on here, is that, UHF versus VHF on a communications television or
Radio,
a two-way radio in Vietnam. We were talking to Bryce's grandfather, who was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, and he was talking about that they could get on UHF and have really bad signal, but it could go further. They could get on VHF and have a clear signal, but it wouldn't go as far. But that the VHF took more electricity than the UHF. So you typically would use UHF with the grunts, as he called them, soldiers on the ground, because the battery pack was already like the constraint for the communications. And it is interesting how we've talked about it before. The electricity revolution is the biggest revolution ever, at least before the AI revolution. And it's because everything is powered. The bottleneck for much of this stuff over time is electricity. And even today, there's like, even if you had 10 times more power, you wouldn't have 10 times more compute, because the bottleneck at this moment in time is actually the number of chips that Taiwan Semiconductor can make for NVIDIA that can then be distributed around the world into these data centers. But the data centers, like I guess one of the reasons I'm not that bullish on like nuclear and just electricity in general is because it is sort of like the data centers demand for electricity is growing quickly, but as a fraction, as a percentage of the overall demand for electricity in the global economy, it's still a small fraction of it, single digits even. And that might go to like double digits over the next 5 or 10 years as more and more data centers full of more and more advanced and power hungry chips are built. But it will sort of be an incremental 5, 10, 15, I don't even think we'll get to much over 10% exponential growth of energy demand, even with all of this. But the point being that it is electricity that is part of the bottleneck. And over time, the only reason that AI works today is because we have so much electricity that we have enough to power these new iterations. So we've gone from communicating with UHF to VHF to internet to social media to broadband 8K video streaming, FaceTime. And now it's like interfacing with not each other, but with a very energy hungry entity that exists out there in the cloud that we like exponentially continues the exponential growth of energy demand.
I think even if it's at the 10% level, if you look at, you chop off just the growth in electricity and you say, what percentage of the growth in electricity will come from, AI centers and so forth? It's like a lot.
A lot. Yeah. I more like 70-80% of the next 5 years worth of extra demand on the energy system will come from AI. Part of that, another small part of that will also be like ever more EVs on the planet needing to charge the batteries, ever more robots, ever more devices. And, there just is an endless growth in energy demand and frankly in chips.
Do you think we're still getting on the EV front? Do you think we're getting enough improvement in kind of density of power to where you get more range out of EVs, that kind of thing?
Slowly but surely. I mean, over the last 6 years that I've owned an EV in rural New Mexico, it's gone from there being one supercharger between me and when I first got it, there was a supercharger in Albuquerque, and then they added one in Socorro, so it was only 90 miles away to get to the closest supercharger between me and Albuquerque. There was only one in El Paso. Now there are 2 in El Paso and 1 in Las Cruces. There needs to be 1 in Alamogordo. There needs to be 1 in Roswell, but both of those are coming over the next year or 2, Tesla's superchargers. And I will say the only charger that you ever want to depend on is a Tesla supercharger. There's nothing worse than going to a off-brand charging station, because the odds are it's not going to work, or it's going to work really poorly.
Yeah, so I'm talking about range, right? You go charge up. Now, how far can you go? And it's like 200 miles.
But John, it goes hand in hand, right? The range anxiety is partly because there's not enough charging stations everywhere you're going. But the more there are charging stations everywhere you're going, the needing a 500-mile range car becomes less important. But yes, I mean, certainly also when I bought the long range Model 3 of 2019, it was a 280-mile range. And when I bought my Cybertruck, it's a 360-mile range. And so the ranges are improving. The latest Model 3 long range is like 360 or something also. So they're getting better all the time. I mean,
yeah, I think it's not. Yeah, I mean, it is important to have more stations and things like that. But the less I have to ever visit a station, if I go on a 3-4 hour drive and I know I can get all the way there versus having 2 stops. Even if that 2 stops gets down to 1 stop, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And then
if the charging time at the superchargers was shorter, that'd be much better. So you could actually charge.
That's the other aspect, right? Yeah.
In 5 minutes or something versus 30 or 40.
Yeah, BYD and another company, Cattle in CATL in China, they both have announced that they now have 5-minute full. You can charge 380 miles in the latest BYD in 5 minutes.
Wow.
Supposedly, Bryce and I have played around with the BYDs, and we're not terribly impressed.
There's a company in Austin that maybe it's a little north of Austin, but Cedar Park or something that does capacitors, ultra high something capacitors. And what it is, it does what the battery does, but it charges like very, very, very quickly. And so the other technologies show up. And then the other thing about it was just wanted to get out of the electricity thing is that as there's more need for these different kinds of stations showing up and so forth, there seems like there's a role for batteries, large scale batteries, like to capture the power that comes in during the day and be able to get it out at night and sort of live at certain points along the grid.
Absolutely. Even on a personal level at my house, we solarized up a year ago, less than a year ago probably, and we bought 2 power walls. But with the demands of Ameris's oxygen machines and other equipment that we run at our house, our monthly electricity bill can be $600 or $800 every month, and we actually didn't buy enough batteries. We deplete those within about 3 or 4 hours every night, if we deplete them at all, because sometimes we leave a little bit in there in case there's an emergency or something. But yeah, we're buying more batteries just for our house because we didn't have enough to energize our house for overnight every night. And I think that's just sort of a case in point of what you're describing. Like, it would be amazing for the data centers to be fully solar powered. And the only way that would happen is if there's enough batteries storing all of the solar power being generated to keep those servers cool overnight.
Right.
This is slightly political, I guess, but in the big beautiful bill, they repealed some of the environmental tax credit stuff for solar and wind, and they repealed the EV tax credit. And Tesla was down big today, partly because of that, partly because Elon's starting the American Party or whatever. Right?
Only the politics. It wasn't.
Anyways, on the solar and stuff, though, I told Cody a while back, like, solar is getting progressively better, more efficient, and cheaper. And people are worried that the end of the subsidies is going to kill that. And I've said forever, I firmly believe that if they had never subsidized it, maybe past the initial research or something, that solar would actually be much further along, and we wouldn't, American companies wouldn't be dependent on largesse to exist, right? They would just be innovating, making better products, just like every other company does all the time, right? We don't need any subsidies to get better solar panels. And I think the incentives have slowed down technological progress, not sped up. So it could be there. Maybe we get a washout of the shitty solar companies that are totally dependent on this, but maybe we're fixing to enter the golden age of renewable resources because there's no more damn government welfare gaming going on, and the CEO spends his time building technology instead of lobbying Congress.
Yeah, good riddance to them all. Good riddance to them all. I mean, the one problem with ending the like renewable energy subsidies is that they didn't end any of the energy of the oil and coal and natural gas subsidies, and fuck them all, like cut them all. We don't need any subsidies for any business in anywhere in this country. Would fix the budget tomorrow. There would be no deficit next year if there were no corporate welfare, no welfare for real estate people, no welfare for homeowners, no welfare for people rich enough to buy an electric vehicle, no welfare for anybody but poor people who need food and healthcare.
It needs snacks. I know. So a question I have is like if oil and things like that, not so much subsidies, but how much it messes things up that every time there's a new administration, it gets kind of yo-yoed from one direction to another about, yes, you're allowed to do this. No, you're not allowed to do this kind of thing versus just like, what's going to be the more stable ongoing rule for, can you drill over here or can you do
John,
this?
I think those oil companies game all of that stuff perfectly. There's never anything from the Democrats or the Republicans that the energy oil companies didn't lobby for. So
I think they wanted, for example, I don't know a lot about it, but the things like, like a pipeline or something, they wanted that thing to happen.
Supposedly. Look, if it didn't happen because they didn't actually want it to. They say stuff just to game it all. There's game theory you have to apply anytime a politician or a lobbyist opens their mouth. They lie, cheat, and steal. They say things they don't mean. They're just trying to speak to their constituents or their bosses, which are never actually the same if you're a politician. Politicians are never beholden. Republicans and Democrats, at least, are never beholden to their constituents.
Yeah, I know about that change.
To corporations.
We're talking about the policy changing back and forth versus
the policies that get changed are lobbied for. None of it happens in a vacuum.
Yeah. Go to Santa Fe. I've worked in Santa Fe, and the Democratic lawmakers get along just as well with Exxon's lobbyists as the Republicans do. And they get along much better, actually, because Democrats control the state of New Mexico. And the Republicans don't. So the Republicans don't get much love from the oil company CEOs.
What about the regulations on AI and the discussion of whether, states should all individually be regulating AI versus like have it happen nationally because it can happen quicker and stuff like that?
Do we need regulation? I mean, this is like the minute you introduce regulations, it's who you know, not what you know. You introduce money and lobbying, and then it's going to be the incumbents that lobby for whatever it is that keeps them incumbency, and then all the startups, screw you guys. Government.
Well, I'm not saying if we need it. I'm saying
the only reason there's not any new social media companies is because Facebook lobbied for rules.
No, what I'm saying is it's not whether we need it. I'm saying it's happening, and it's happening at the level where there have been 50 different things put forward by various of the states saying in our state we're gonna allow this or that with.
And I can't control any of it. I'm just gonna bitch about it. Okay, I'm not voting for any Republicans or Democrats under any circumstance ever in my life, like I have been saying my entire adult life. And I'm going to complain about every regulation and every rule and every subsidy that any Republican or Democrat ever votes on, because there's never been any policy that has even been put forth in my lifetime that was not put forth by a lobbyist, a corporation, a private interest. It's always done like that.
Thanks. That's what I wanted to know was your political opinion, because I don't know it and haven't heard it before.
Well, you
No.
asked, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like, seriously, look, I just want no regulation. And if that's not allowed, then I want the least amount of regulation we can have. And if that's not allowed, then we're fucked. I mean, like always, let some entrenched powers get lots of money and power and screw the poor people. It's what happens anytime you put in rules.
On the regulation though, John, like how do you even regulate AI? Like I remember in the diffusion rule, they were trying to regulate chips. That was a mistake. And then I saw some legislation where they were like, okay, if your model has more than 100 billion parameters, you need prior approval. And I'm like,
God.
that shit's not going to fly. Like how does nobody in Washington or any state house knows what a parameter is? You know?
Our internet connection is faster than 32 kilobits per second.
Yeah,
it's certainly not going to work well. I think the example is my example is like Europe, and what's it called? GLP something. The rule about
like the data privacy thing.
Yeah, the reason you see
do you want cookies? Do you want cookies on your website? Do you want cookies from my website?
The reason you get asked that every time, everywhere, is because of the EU.
Right.
For the record, I never put that on any of my own websites, and I invite the EU to sue me.
Yeah, and so many companies wasted so much time. I was at these companies. I was, in the departments where we were having to program it in to make sure we cover for it. And now it's being admitted, how many, 20, 15 years later, that it isn't working. It
hasn't helped anything ever in any way. Correct. It was a lobbyist who put that bill out there because there was some company that was going to make a ton of money with cookies.
So I think it would be, if we wanted this stuff to not happen all over the place, that would be a good example to use to come back and say, hey, remember what happened there? Nothing.
You think Republicans and Democrats in power give a shit what happened? They're just going to do what they're paid to do, man. They're going to be ruled whatever the entrenched powers that are paying them off are wanted. That's how it works.
Yeah, so that's what we should talk to, is the entrenched powers that are paying them off. But I mean, whoever's going to
don't care.
Whoever's going to be the one.
They just want to keep their money and power.
Data privacy is a big deal, and especially at the enterprise level, they are very worried about keeping their data private in the age of AI, making sure you're not uploading customer confidential info, or if you're in the medical industry, HIPAA info, right? And if you're in the legal industry, you've got attorney-client privilege to worry about. But I really think that the solutions to those privacy problems come from the private sector. And I think you're going to have, if the lawyers need to have a walled garden, secure, on-prem AI, then they're going to do that. They'll figure that out. And that's how they'll meet their obligations as attorneys. We don't need some law that says, attorneys, you have to do this with your data and use this AI. But I mean, anytime that shit comes in.
There's already existing laws that force attorneys and hedge fund managers and most anyone with any kind of personal private information to maintain it privately. Mm-hmm. And if you violate that because you put some shit into AI, well, use the existing laws to prosecute the crime. We don't need AI laws.
Yeah, EU, it was GDPR. That's what I was trying to remember. In crypto, you've got KYC, which know your customer, and
that's Wall Street. That's finance in general. You always
so it's like laws around like.
Again, the KYC law and the securities rules already existed. We didn't have to come up with new crypto rules. You could have just prosecuted all the fraud in crypto 5 years ago, Gary Gensler. Biggest gift ever to crypto.
Bryce, can you next time get him out of his shell?
I have no shell.
It's so reserved.
I have no filter. I have no shell. I have no friends.
You have friends. I'm your friend.
Oh, John. So nice.
Yeah.
All right. Last words. What do you got?
Trying to think of what's been. I saw more stuff showing up about your friend Sam Altman, and what a kind of con man he is. So just that's out there,
including the fact that nobody got $100 million signing bonus.
Although there is a lot of people getting hired away by Meta.
Correct, but not with the $100 million signing bonus.
Right. Yeah.
That was all I argued about with that last time.
Oh yeah.
Victory lap. That was my
They
victory.
gave them a week
John,
off.
do you think it's telling at all that they didn't hire anybody from Anthropic? I've seen people make jokes about that.
I think
both
it would
ways.
be not because the Anthropic folks aren't good, but because they don't want to leave, because they're they're managed
The
well.
boss is not Scam Altman.
Well, they're anti-scam.
I mean,
And
they
that's why
actually might like their boss, unlike the people at OpenAI, who I'm sure hate their boss.
And I do like their
They don't
product.
even have- Did you see the post where that Robinhood was like, "Hey, we're going to we're tokenizing the privately held OpenAI. You can get equity in OpenAI through our tokens." And then the next day, OpenAI was like, "Nah, we didn't say that was okay, and that's not okay. Our equity, we don't allow anyone to have equity unless we approve them." No. And then Elon was like, "You have fake equity anyway." Boom.
That was funny.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, the children need to learn how to get along. We got more important stuff to do.
It's a lot more entertaining. What is Elon's thing? The most entertaining outcome is the most likely?
Yeah.
Except when it's the most ironic outcome, that's the most likely. But sometimes the most ironic is the most entertaining. So that works.
Yeah.
Bryce, last words.
I can't think of anything like super punchy. I think I'll just go back to the Google Apple thing, because that's how we started, and double down again on Google. And I want to sell my Apple that I've had for 13 years. My cost basis is $14, and I want to sell it and put the money in Google.
But you're not doing that because of the taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess
All
the other thing that I would leave with is that, Apple and Google's biggest edge in the AI revolution perhaps is the amount of personalized data they have on everyone, and how valuable that will be in tailoring AI solutions, ads, content, whatever it is you're consuming through their services. And I think there are other companies that probably fit into that paradigm. None of them have the kind of personalized data, at least in our country, that those two do. But, in China, you would certainly think that Alibaba and Tencent and the other companies who are on everyone's smartphones there are going to have that kind of data.
I think
Just personalized data is going to be incredibly valuable in future years.
I think the bit may be bigger than personalized data, even though we always talk about data and it's huge and it lets you do things, whatever. With like an Apple and a Google is brand, and that's not about what they know about the customer. It's about what place they take in the customer's head. So Apple's got a place in people's brains that when you think about easy to use, or it being cool, or what it allows of me, or it takes good care of my data, all the things I might think about them, that's like they own that piece of real estate in 500 million brains. And so whatever they decide to do next, if it's Apple doing it, then they get this. If it's Google doing it, then they get this. So I think that's a piece of that.
I would add to that, they have instant distribution of billions of devices.
Yes.
Right?
That too.
They have that brand presence, but probably more important, ChatGPT can't instantly turn itself on 2 billion devices, and Gemini,
Yes,
Google can do that with Gemini on Android.
Yes.
Apple can turn on good AI at some point on 2 billion iPhone devices if they ever figure out how to do it.
I was thinking distribution as well, and I got caught up in the brain thing. But yes, those two things for sure. But now my last word will be more generally about.
That was your last word. You don't get two last words.
That was simply responding to your last word.
Okay,
that was my penultimate word. It's not anything huge or anything specific. It's just that we talk about AI and is it winning and how's it going, and I think that where we are now is we're on AI's playing field. So before it was like, is it winning or not, and what's the score and so forth. Now it's however it's doing, it's its score. The story is about, the game is about AI across the board in every which area.
Yeah, in other words, you're saying like the AI is the league itself, not the teams.
That's right.
Not a player on a team. It's not the ball. It's the whole league.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
All right, then I get to revise my final thought.
Please.
Best business idea I've ever come up with. I came up with over the weekend, and that is the National Nerf Basketball Association, NNBA. 8-foot rims, 10-foot ceilings, no goaltending. This is the next pickleball. I'm starting this business.
Excellent. What do you do about like palming? You know,
Hey, you got to dribble. It's normal basketball rules. You got to pass. You got to dribble. You get 1 pivot foot. I guess we could go with NBA. You get 2 pivot feet.
Yeah.
You get 1 point if you're within 10 feet of the rim. 2 feet. 2 points. You get every 10 feet away, further away, you get an extra point. So if you can go back to 30 feet and get it through a 10-foot ceiling to an 8-foot rim and make it, that's 3-pointer.
Everything that makes it more accessible to people under 8 feet tall is going to be a really good move, because
that's what I'm
that's
thinking.
the move from tennis to pickleball, became so popular because, you can learn pickleball in about 10 minutes.
And maybe you only get 1 dunk per game, but that dunk is going to be awesome, man.
Need a breakaway rim.
Oh, I've destroyed so many Nerf hoops in my life. You have no idea. All right. Thank you, guys. Good to see you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
The NNBA.